Hey guys, and welcome to the That's So Craven podcast. You have me as the host this time, Mark. The first choice Dave was out, Skibby was out, so you got the equivalent of Carlos Vinicius coming in, and I am joined with the OG Pod Daddy, the King of Perth, the father of Jack and Sam, Elton. How's it going?
Very, very well. Love the intro. Good to have you. And, when we said you needed to be in the zone to actually host the podcast, we didn't say you had to actually join us in the time zone, but thanks for doing it anyway. He hasn't told you yet, but Mark's actually seeing in Hong Kong.
It felt necessary. It felt right. I want to be part of the community. I want to join in, and it's just convenient, isn't it, to fly that far to be part of the time zone. And backing me up, the irrepressible, the undisputed Sam.
My ego can't handle it. It's too good. It's too good. Big up for the boy. Mark's taking the shining position today. It's Pride Week in Melbourne at the moment, so I'm proud of all my gays. I'm proud of the team, and I'm proud of Mark for stepping up. Let's get into it. I'm really, really excited. Mark's very confident right now, and I'm loving it. Let's have fun. Let's just have fun.
I think a little bit of liquid confidence always helps. And I'm not as proud as I am of you wearing that kimono. My God, you've brought it back. It's in. Wear it, own it, love it.
Gives people what they want.
So let's talk about Wigan, guys. FA Cup match. We'll get into the fine details. But we won. We won 2-1. My opinion, it was largely comfortable. But let's go through it bit by bit. In terms of the lineup, was it what you guys were expecting, or would you like to have seen something different? Let's kick off with you, Elton.
Yeah, I mean, as I said I can't remember whether it was in the Discord. Did anyone say we had a Discord? Yeah,
You just
we've got a
did,
Discord.
Dad.
That was
Yeah,
smooth.
yeah. There's a Discord, just growing in leaps and bounds, and join it, or you're missing out. But as I said, wherever I said it, I think Marco had maybe three objectives for this fixture. One, to win. Two, to give some very key players in some stress positions a rest, and also to get some minutes into the legs and bodies of a couple of people who haven't played a lot of games and may well be required. I'm thinking that we achieved all of those things, and yeah, sure, it kind of on paper compared to a Premier League starting 11, it looked a bit makeshift, and I think that comes with some, invariably some lack of fluidity. But hey, I was very happy with. I actually think, if I'm not wrong, I think the ladies and gents on After Dark on Thursday, actually, I think it might have been Mary Townsend actually, who actually called Kearney and Reid in the middle, which perhaps may have surprised some people, but I think it was a good move. Yeah, I think Mooney's up front. I was very happy to see that, and obviously it worked a treat. And yeah, Quenker got a run, good to see. Sess got a run, lovely to see. And the only one that worries me is how far we're pushing Castagna. Oh, I missed out on mentioning King as well. He was terrific. Yeah, Castagna worries me, but we don't have a lot of options there.
Yeah, very fair point. I mean, we also saw Harrison Reed come back in, and he was sort of, I wouldn't quite say it was dictating play. That was definitely more Kearney. But we saw a couple of interesting through balls that felt a little bit different. I don't know if Marco was trying something new, but perhaps we didn't quite have the height advantage. So he was going low and trying to pass it along the wings. But Sam, what were your thoughts in terms of the newer members of the team that we saw who were perhaps given their chance? The likes of King, Godot, and whoever else you want to mention.
So like we've been doing this a while now, and it was fun for me to actually watch it. So I'm not sure if you guys have seen the movie Goal, but I felt like I was a bit I felt like I was scouting these guys, and I just felt like, because I know of these guys, and the other night was actually the first time I've really seen them have like a really full proper run out where they were like the guys that were selected in a pretty competitive game that wasn't something of like a write-off. Like Marco actually put them on to play and to see what they've got. So I was really putting yeah, it's late. I was really putting my what's the word I'm looking for? Scout. I'm gonna say scout hat on again.
Your scouting hat.
I'm gonna say scouting hat. And yeah, like I thought it was weird having King on the right, and I felt like I really wanted him more central, which we got a little bit later on to the game. I thought it was really, really good to see Gotto actually play competitively and also have a bit of a run out. I mean, for me, it was all about Muniz and actually seeing Muniz actually play well. And also as well, Bender as well, actually seeing what he can actually do. I think there actually is a player there in Bender. But there was a couple of very, very stressful moments, but I can see the vision. I genuinely think this is one of the best games I've ever seen Issa Diop play in my entire life. I thought he was very, very, very good and very, very influential in a couple of really key points. So I'm quite happy for him in that regard. And yeah, but really for me, the most important thing was Muniz just getting the 2 goals that he was supposed to get. I thought that was the most important to take away.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And I mean, you mentioned a couple of names there that perhaps exceeded expectations. Bendo was one of them because he faced a really difficult shot. I think it was in the second half where I was almost certain that was going to be an equalizer. You know, it was through a crowd and he really had to make a strong reaction save there. But Diop is another great shout. And I don't think we've seen that utilized enough. It's something that really excites me. When he came in, I believe it was a corner, right? And he came in, he did a sort of diagonal run and a header. And perhaps if that was a little bit better placed, that might have tested the goalkeeper, who one of our group chat mentioned had a rather interesting name, Tickle. But Tickle properly saved that shot, and I think that was quite impressive. But any other standout names for you guys that you thought really performed above and beyond?
I think. Sorry, Sam, go ahead.
Well, I think above and beyond is a bit of a stretch. I don't really think anybody fully excelled for me. I think if you probably put King in a more central position, he probably would have excelled. So I feel like I'm a little bit robbed of that. I feel like him on the right really took him out of the game, and I didn't really see any new standouts. I thought Cess did pretty good. I thought he did some key assists, but I don't really have one particular person that like blew me away. What about you, Dad?
I'm going to disagree with you. I thought King did himself very, very proud. I think I'm hesitant to kind of go overboard because, after all, without any disrespect to Wigan, it was only Wigan. But I think we've seen him in the Premier League against quality opposition, and I genuinely believe he can do it. I think he's emerging very, very quickly, and I think it's not too far to suggest that he's a real option now in this squad for Marco, particularly since we've got some injury problems, some very long-term injury problems. And I think he's a real chance for some game time in some serious against some serious opponents. And I think he's got some real quality. To compare and contrast to, say, Gotto, who I think is also really exciting, I don't think he's of the same quality and level as King. But he's, as Mark mentioned in one of our WhatsApp group chats, Gotto I'm talking about, he's exciting, he's young, he's keen to impress, he kind of gets the bit between his teeth and really goes for it, and he's prepared to run at defenders. And he carried the ball really, really well a couple of times in that game, and he's not short of confidence, and I think that's what you get from young kids. and we can't have enough of that.
I definitely don't think King played badly. I just don't think we actually put him in the best position to actually really show him off and really make him excel, if that makes sense. I just feel like he was a little bit wasted on the right, even though I still think he played very, very well considering. I'm not sure how I feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I feel with King is that it's really impressive given his youth that he doesn't feel out of place. You don't look at him and be like, oh, he's absolutely going to get muscled off, or he's very nervous, or he's going to make the wrong decision. He seems very composed when he has the ball, and you can see the skill, and I think there is a place for him. And God, I hope we can keep him, because seriously, what a talent. I think if I recall correctly, he captained the under-20s or something like that for England. So like, he's getting recognition already, and it's only a matter of time before some top team, comes sniffing and gives us some low ball bid of 4 million and then ties him down to a 7-year before eventually loaning him off to a particular bus stop in Hounslow. So yeah, little Fulham reference there.
Don't even think about it. But
exactly.
I think it's funny how. Sorry, Mark. It's funny how the cards fall, and this particular moment we've got some injury problems, and if I think if Wilson had stayed fit, and perhaps if Nelson hadn't copped an injury, he may have really struggled to break through. And now he's got an opportunity, and he's had a couple of chances off the bench, and he's done well, albeit briefly. And I think he's absolutely going to get an opportunity, which probably accelerates his growth faster than anyone was thinking at the start of the season, including Marco. And Marco's hand is somewhat being forced. So I think it's a good time. It's exciting, and I think he's going to get an opportunity, and I don't think he's going to disappoint us.
So yeah, I just highlighted a comment in the chat from Nick, because I think it's actually quite a good one. How much is King then worth to us as a club now, more than Stansfield? Question to the group,
I'd say yes. I mean, I know Jay Stansfield is proven himself outside of Fulham more than King has, but I think Mark's previous reference to him getting the armband for England under-20s is a pretty good signal as to what outsiders think of him. And even if that hadn't happened, from my eyes, from what I see, because everyone knows, I know more than England. I think he's really high quality. He's young. He's so young, and he's exciting.
Yeah, I'd echo that sentiment. I mean, like I said, doesn't look uncomfortable in the Premier League, which, what a trial by fire. Just thrown in, do your best against, honestly, everyone will admit it, probably the toughest league in the world in terms of pace and energy and speed and strength. And he doesn't look out of place. He's young. He's an England international. He fills a very...
Oh, did we lose Mark?
Only digitally.
What was he going to fill? Go
ahead, Mark.
Oh, sorry about that. I was just saying King's very impressive given his pedigree, right? He's young, he's an England international, and he brings a lot to the team. So perhaps more than Stansfield. That's my take on it.
You definitely lose him more centrally as well. I know I keep on highlighting that, but I think a good centre mid is just worth so much because they're just so rare.
But I know that might be where you wanted to see him, but I don't think he did badly on the wing at all, and I think he did a really good job for us actually.
Yeah, I thought he did fine. Anyway, we digress.
Agreed. So moving on, let's chat a little bit about the goals. We're going to start with the first half and the sort of general sort of mood of how we played and what we did. We see Muniz is on the score sheet twice, but I think a beautiful, beautiful movement, right? Very quick, and we played it out to the wings like we usually do. Good to see Cesc get involved. He gets it in the box. Muniz does his thing. But what did you guys take away from that? Do you think maybe Cesc is, I don't want to say in with the shout in the first team, but he's showing us something. And just, I digress a little bit, but for me, I felt like it was a very vibe signing. It kind of made sense because it was free and we saw what he could do before, but I wasn't that convinced about Sessegnon. But maybe we're seeing the start of something new. What do you guys take away from our first goal and the link-up play before, as it went in?
Well, I think as a left back, which is classically what his position is, I think he's got very little chance to replace Robinson. As a option on the wing or wing back, even though we don't really play classically that format, I in the current situation, when stocks are low and Marco's got to look around and be creative. Saturday night, it was last night. Last night's showing was a fantastic opportunity for him to prove that he really can be an option there. I think he can. He looked pacey. He looked creative. Can I go as far as saying I actually prefer a Cess cross to a Robinson cross?
Oh, that's a big call, dude.
Yeah. And I'll put it out there.
All right.
I know Robinson's crosses have improved, but that ball into Muniz had a bit behind it. I like the height. I like the fact that I think it was two things happening. There was a very desperate Muniz prepared to get ahead on it, and even though he probably got a shoulder on it, and it was more of an own goal than anything else. I don't care, because unless you actually are making that dive, you're not forcing an error. So technically own goal, if you like, but I like the move and I like the hunger. And I think he's an option. I think he's an option. He may not be first pick on the wing. He's not gonna get picked ahead of a 36-year-old Willian if he's fit. If Iwobi is available to play on the left, he's not going to beat Iwobi to a shirt. So realistically, he's in there in the mix. I'm just happy that he got some minutes. He did pretty well. It'd be great for his confidence, which I think is obviously a problem. Everyone's happy to see Cess do well.
I actually disagree ever so slightly. Not really a disagreement, but more kind of just going off what you said. If we circle back a couple of years now to when Silva first took over, we've been singing the praises of Robinson for the past 2 years. But I remember a couple of years ago when Joe Bryan and Robinson were pretty much like neck and neck, and we didn't see Robinson in the same regard that we do now. I think a lot of that has actually been the molding and the tutelage of Silva. And Silva apparently knows how to create a really, really excellent left back. And I think I can kind of see the beginnings of what he's trying to do with Robinson in Cess, because if you asked me a couple of months ago what's Cess's position, I would have kind of been on your guys' side where we don't fully know. But I think after last night, I can kind of see, he will be a left back. And I think if he's going to be molded in the same way that Robinson was, I think he might actually be quite a good one. But it's just going to take some time. And I think Silva now is in the process of really preparing at some point to lose Robinson, because I think that kind of feels like a bit of a foregone conclusion. And I think Cess is the project that we actually have more time to build up and actually have a new Robinson come through. After last night, that's how I feel that we're kind of going about it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think the one thing that worries me about that, even though I would argue, yes, the crossing is quite good from Cess, and he can get up and he can be quite tricky as well. And we've seen him, he's got good football IQ. Back when we had him when he was 18, he'd sort of know when to make those runs into the box. I do worry about the athleticism, though, because if there's one thing we can say about Robinson, Jesus Christ, that guy can run 90 plus 10. And yes, those defensive attributes that he brings, massive. But it was good that we saw Cesc got a run out. You know, he did well. He's got his assist. I think he was very pleased to represent us and to showcase the Fulham shirt and get involved with the goals. So, you know, overall, yeah, I think the first half seemed pretty controlled, pretty composed, a couple of chances. But anything else stood out to you guys in terms of any big moments or any chances that, you know, maybe you felt we could have done better?
I think it would probably be, I'd be remiss if we didn't really talk a little bit more about Harrison Reed, because like I don't think he played terribly, but I also, I don't know, I think after that game I was kind of left thinking I don't really know how much time you kind of have here. Maybe that's a little bit cruel of me, or maybe that's I don't know, a little bit cutthroat. But I think we have better options, as I've just previously spoken about, with King and obviously with Bender and Lukic, and even like Kenny as well. I know it's slightly different placements for all of those guys, but I did come away from it thinking, yeah, this was a game where you probably could have made a big impression, and it didn't really kind of impress upon me. Like, what do you guys kind of feel about that?
Well, I think it's a little harsh. I mean, the guy had a long period out with injury, and then he's not in the running in terms of the midfield pairing, the defensive central and defensive midfield pairing. So he has not had a lot of football, and it's not that surprising to me that he probably looked a little rusty. I don't think he looked out of place. I don't think he didn't make. He looked fairly reasonably sharp, but you know, he just hasn't played a lot of football. Can he do a job? Absolutely, if he was up to speed. And that was kind of what I was referencing when I said it was a good opportunity for some players to get some minutes. And he's one that I think could indirectly be called upon. I mean, we know where we are now. The window is closed. We know where we are in terms of our right back situation. And if Castagna, God forbid, and I'm touching all the wood I can here, if Castagna gets an injury, Harrison Reed is a name in the mix who may be called upon to do a job at right back. You know, I've heard Cuenca being suggested. I've heard, you know, Adama being suggested as a possible right back. But out of all of those, I think I'd be happier with a nuggety little bull terrier like Harrison Reed doing a job for us, or at least making a fist of it at right back. And in order to do that, he's got to get some minutes, because that's going to be a very tall order for him to simply come back into the Premier League. You know, God forbid, against one of the better sides with super tricky. I mean, imagine if Reed had to come back having not even played against Wigan, and we were playing Newcastle, you know, last week.
Yeah, I know.
That would be a really difficult mission for him.
Yeah, I know. And like, I think more my question is, should we start the process of refocusing to other players outside of Reed, more so than leaning on Reed? Because I know I agree with everything that's been said. I'm thinking more like long term here, just like, I mean, really, in like the summer transfer window, I'm not sure how much longer he actually has. Is more kind of my point and sentiment.
Yeah, 100%. I think he can still do a job, but at the same time, is that our ambition to like?
Yeah,
it kind of felt like it during the January transfer window.
Yeah,
but we got Willian, and everybody loves Willian. He's a lovely man.
Yeah. Oh man, having some network trouble today.
That's okay. That's okay. We're all friends here. Now, where were we?
I was gonna say, it feels, you know, if we're just focusing on Reed, it feels like we can do more, right? The January transfer window felt like that, with Willian sort of doing a job, and as a selfish football fan, I kind of want more than doing a job. And gonna commit a cardinal sin here and reference another podcast, but the Fulhamish guys did an interesting talk on that, and I found myself agreeing with them on that. You know, the common argument is there's no value in the January transfer window, but Brentford found value and Brighton found value, and I think even Bournemouth or a few others. It may not have been 3 or 4 signings, but they found their one position. And I know that we did find the right back position. We're going on a bit of a tangent here, but I'm just a bit gutted that there seems to have been a budget and we sort of didn't want to push it. And I wonder if that is indicative of the kind of aspirations and ambition of the ownership when we're so close to Europe. And we're so close to Europe, not only of our own merit, but also of other clubs perhaps not being where we would expect them to be. Tottenham, United, West Ham. It feels like an opportunity, and only time will tell, right? This was either a very clever move to save money and have more in the war chest come summer, or we finish 9th and we say, wow, 5 points would have done it for us to get European football.
You have a smirk, Dad, and I want to know what it's about.
Yeah, it's. I'm always intrigued, amused at Marcus Silva. He's a fiery gentleman, and he wears his heart on his sleeve. You know, he's pretty transparent as to what he thinks and feels. And yet, is it ironically, was he just being the ultimate diplomat? He seems to defend the owners in the transfer window, certainly did this time, by saying, you know, I don't like a big squad. I'm not interested in just patching things. I only want a player if it increases the value of our squad. So I'm just not going for anyone. And he seems to be defending the fact that we didn't do a lot of business, almost to indicate that, no, I'm fine. And why would I have wanted to purchase any other players? There wasn't a lot of value around. But as you say, Mark reeled off a number of clubs that seemed to find value. And it kind of left me wondering whether we were linked and apparently allegedly close to closing business with a couple of players. And it seems that they actually turned us down, which worries me. And because I wonder, surely they're not turning Marco Silva, the manager and the director of this project, down, because I think he's proven himself. He's done very well at Fulham, table and points wise. He's got an exciting brand of football. It's entertaining, and yet we're not quite hitting Europe, and maybe that's the kind of gold dust that top name players are really after. Maybe that defines the gap in terms of, in a nutshell, our lack of ambition is potentially starting to cause us some problems in the transfer window? Question mark.
I mean, it's not really our lack of ambition, because Silva clearly has ambition.
But as a club,
100%, yeah. Yeah, no, I agree.
So it's, Marquez, I think, as I said, being very diplomatic about it. What else has he got to do? Someone pays his check. But it's a tricky one. Mark, what are you thinking?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I just got a little Fulham chime going on in the background, so that's kind of caught me a little bit off guard from the living room. But yeah, I think, the lack of ambition isn't Marco. The style of play isn't Marco. And, I often joke in our group chat, if there was sort of a Champions League spot for sustainability, we'd be there, because we seem to love stretching how many points we can get for squad value. And we do well there. That's cool. I think Odie Forrest are beating us for, squad value for points. But yeah, I just sometimes, especially when Marco references it, which we know he's very diplomatic. Someone pays his check and there's no point throwing your toys outside the pram. But when he even comes out and says, yes, a right back would be good for us. And we did try, we on the Discord, we're giving that a shout out again. Great place to be if you want to chat all things Fulham, if you want to find out a little bit about tactics, a little bit about transfers. Fantastic place to be. Lots of emojis as well, so that's always good. You get validation from the group. But yeah, when when he comes out and says we want something and we try and we don't quite get it, you got to wonder, is it a money thing? Did we just not enough money, offer enough money to the club or to the player? Because I mean, bloody hell, if Saudi and all the other clubs can find the players they need for the positions they need, why not Fulham? You know, so it's just a interesting little digression. But yes, moving on, second half, let's chat a little bit about that. It always seems to happen, doesn't it? Whenever we play against multiple teams, it's always the sensational strike outside the box. My thoughts on it, I feel like we're told to hold off. We don't really close down as much. Even the commentator said Castagna should have done a little bit better there. I don't know why he was giving him so much space, I believe. But we've seen it when we played Brentford. We've seen it when we played Watford. And now, once again, with Wigan. So you'd think that the goalkeeper, you know, when we're talking about Leno, Brentford, or Bender, Watford, Wigan, would have enough time. But do you guys think we're just really unlucky and those are a series of, you know, really well-struck shots? Or should we be doing something a bit better with our strategy? Should we be closing down more? Should we be more aggressive in the tackle and not give them that space? I mentioned this because I know, at least for previous seasons, this was what Thomas Frank did. He was very happy to sort of congest the box and give lots of low XG shots from outside the box that he was confident that Raya and then Flecken would be able to save. So do you think we're doing something similar? We're giving up control outside the box and crowding out the box, or were we just really unfortunate with the quality of the shot that came off?
It's an interesting comment you make there. I was just about to say, I'd love to see the stat of how many goals we concede to low XG shots outside the box compared to other teams. And maybe some geek following us live will feed us that very quickly. Jack.
Or a valued member of our fan base.
Well, I was actually talking about one of my sons because I know he's looking.
Yeah.
I know he's looking that up as we speak. And if I waste enough time, I reckon he'll give it to me before I actually complete my sentence. But the other point is, you know, I think the problem with Bender in that particular goal is that he realized where it was going, and it was side netting. It was side netting, and he realized where it was ending up, and he didn't even make an attempt, which kind of makes it look a bit worse. Because I think if he dives full stretch, it probably looks like he's actually in the game with half a chance of stopping that. I don't think he's got any chance of stopping that. You'd have to have a wingspan, a double, you know, at least 50% more than his actual length of his arms to stop that. Number one, he was kind of positioned a little bit towards the left. He wasn't in the center of his goal line when that shot is actually taken. But I honestly think not many keepers would stop that. But to your point, Mark, should we have done better? Of course we should have done better in terms of closing him down. He had a lot of time. He had a lot of time to actually push that ball out away from his body, open his body up, and then wrap his foot around it. He had plenty of time. So that always suggests we could have done better. Here we go. So Nick has actually done it, which I'll put up on the screen. Well done, Nick.
We give up 1 point. Okay. Yeah. I don't really know what that fully means.
Just for the listeners, we give up 1.28 xg a game versus creating 1.52 xg, and that's from Nick.
Yeah, I don't fully understand XG. I'm just going to wax lyrical about something else. So
yeah, thanks, Nick.
For my money, it's a good point, but I can't divulge into that more. I just don't understand the maths. I'm not a mathematician. I'm just a guy with a microphone. So like for me at least, I think it's always going to it's two things. So. I'm a big believer that you can't really blame the keeper too much because it will always come down to the line of defense. It's the classic Onana Man U case. I don't actually think Onana is a shit keeper. I think he's at a shit club that's really, really poorly run and nobody cares about him, so he's just copping. In the case of Bender, I think actually in the box, I quite like him. I can see why we signed him, and I can see that there's an ongoing project there. I think he can actually stop shots, and like he actually showed me. I was like, there's something here. I appreciate this guy, but and it's why you value older keepers. They just understand the game a little bit better. He made some bless him. He made some very, very silly mistakes, and I think that was one of those ones where I actually disagree. I feel that he probably could have stopped that shot. He just didn't necessarily see what was happening coming. And I'm not actually criticizing him in that kind of way. I think he's just still kind of getting his bearings and actually learning about the level of competition that he's actually come to now. And he just didn't telegraph that. But this is all part of his journey and him learning this, because that's something that Leno probably would have telegraphed. Still a really, really cracking shot, taking nothing away from the guy. I don't even remember who scored, but really, really solid shot. Defense didn't necessarily look out for him, and he just didn't necessarily make the right call. We can say that, he could have done better, but this is a young developing talent. I think for the large portion of the game, he actually played really, really well. And I want that to be the legacy of the game and not necessarily his faux pas. He did a worse one in the second half. But again, there was still a lot more good points for Bender. I like Bender is my point that I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point, right? I think I agree in that the fundamentals are there. Like when he had to make that reflex save, that was huge,
right.
and he pulled that off. And there was another one with a corner that I believe was bending in, felt like it could have gone in. He got a hand to it, shoved it out for another corner. So yeah, in the very basics of what we expect a goalkeeper to do and to do well consistently, I think Bender brings that. But I think the lad is just 23 or 24, so for a goalkeeper, he's basically a baby. It's good that he's learning off Leno. I'd argue that Leno, I mean, God, Fabianski is ancient, but I'd argue that Leno at least has another year left after this season, if not 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But, not that we are necessarily a part of a club that does this, but I would love some foresight and succession planning. That would be really good. So I don't have my heart in my mouth every time we get a dodgy foul on Leno coming in from a corner that inevitably doesn't get a yellow card, because we don't really get those until the 4th or 5th foul, in my opinion, as a entirely objective Fulham fan. Go on, Sam.
I actually have a question for the group. This is kind of turned into like, who do we actually want at the moment? But what? I'm just rolling with it because I think it's an interesting conversation. I think with Bender, I think you're 100% right, Mark, about in the next. I think we'll keep him I think we'll keep Leno for another year. Maybe even a year after that. But then by that time, or even really in the next transfer window, should we be actively looking for an equal or somebody to replace Leno, just to allow Bender to have the time to develop? And not in the same way that we did with Rodak, because I feel that Rodak was a bit of an awkward one, because we got him when we were in the championship to be the guy in the championship. And we didn't really project for Premier League, whereas now we're thinking Premier League. And like, would Bender be ready in time, like in 2-3 years time? I'm not entirely sure. It's feasible, but would you guys prefer us to try and sign like a starting keeper or an equal to Bender?
Well, I think we have to kind of bring it back to reality. This is the Khan's Fulham period, right? And in not one area of the pitch do we have Premier League, God forbid, Europe level competition for a single spot. Well, if I'm wrong, tell me where I am. Look, I arguably at the right side of centre back, you've got Diop and you've got Anderson, and they are arguably Premier League level centre backs on the right side. Where else? I suppose
right wing. Iwobi,
ESR and
Pereira.
Andreas in the number 10.
Right wing
But
Iwobi and Wilson maybe.
yeah, but yeah, that's fair, I think, as well. But what I'm saying is, where we're scratching for additional absolutely key players, and we're trying to manage our risk from the grandstands and the back of the hammy end to give us some cover around Castagna. We got no chance of getting a lot of competition in for Leno in my head. Not a chance. I totally agree with Mark that that's what we should be doing, and there should be someone, maybe an older, very experienced ex-Champions League player coming in who can totally do a job, but you can't necessarily rely on him for a whole season. A little bit like Wrexham did. But I can't see it. Just can't see it happening. Just cannot see the funds being allocated for that kind of move.
I mean, ideally, we'd have a younger, almost or equally as capable goalkeeper as Leno, who would really challenge him, right, and could be seen as a successor. But I think a little bit of sort of pressure on the position is a good thing, because it's meant to drive each player to do their best and to really want to earn that spot. And I've mentioned it before, but Leno is quite lucky in that he needs to have several consecutive blunders before Marco moves him out. And he's built up a lot of credit in the bank. Big Leno fan, totally worthy of his spot. Very lucky he's professional and he's consistent and he's good. But I think well-run clubs understand that players could be put. What are we going to do if for some reason? Okay, maybe he's a little bit too old for them because Bayern already have their keeper. But like a really top Bundesliga club come in, they say we're going to pay you more and you're going to move home, and this is your chance to really cement your place in the national team. That sounds good. You could be tempted with that from an emotional perspective as well as a financial one. So, another fun little tangent, but yeah, just something fun to think about and talk about. But back to the game again, a quick response, and you love to see it because our boy Muniz pops up big again, and these are the kind of goals I personally love. The ones in transition, the fast ones where we just go for it. We're not sort of, faffing around on the sides trying to pick out the perfect cross. Amazing move from AP, who I am very, very critical of. I think he's a great player, don't get me wrong. But I think sometimes he thinks too much and sometimes he just sends it and it just doesn't land right. And it's frustrating because he has the ability. And this time he showed it. But Sam, why don't you walk us through it? What do you think of the second goal?
I think the Brazilians in full force at the moment. I mean, their grandfather has returned, and like he's enlightened them, and he's brought solidarity back to the group. So I genuinely really love. I mean, I'm joking around a bit, but I do genuinely love the interplay between Andreas and Muniz. I feel like that's actually been really, really missing in the past couple of games, because there was a period where ESR was getting favored and Muniz actually kind of suffered as a result of that. God bless him. But I think you're 100% right. It was really, really well worked, and just so confidently done because there's so much trust between those guys, and it just really, really reflects really, really nicely. I know Wigan's defense isn't that strong, but they need to be reminded at every given opportunity that when they flow and when they're basically in that flow state, they are making the right decisions, because they can get really, really wrapped up in what they're doing. I mean, every time I saw Andreas center mid, he looked so overwhelmed, and it just wasn't comfortable to watch. In the same way that Muniz at the start of the season as well wasn't overly comfortable with just the changing lineup. This was great. I want to see more of it. even if it's just Muniz and Andreas, and even if they just come on in like the last 20 minutes of a game just to do that every single time, it works, and it's really, really validating to actually see that. And I'm just a massive fan.
Yeah, I talked about this a little bit in our chat group earlier in the week when people were a bit down on the Williams signing as being our only signing. I'm a massive fan of Williams, not least because I think he's a classy footballer. I like what he releases in terms of the juices that he actually releases in our Brazilian boys. If you think about it, our Brazilians are all attacking players, and we've got no defensive midfield Brazilian players at all. They're all attacking players, all very creative players. And I think not that Marco is confining them to a system that doesn't allow them to express themselves. I think AP's had different problems. He's been asked to play out of position. It hasn't gone well for him. He's been under pressure, from the stands, probably from himself. He's underperformed this season for various reasons. And I think, how can you be creative and how can you, dance like no one's watching if you're under that kind of pressure? And so the very fact that it's obvious, the last 2 weeks, AP and Muniz have actually combined to score goals. And I know one was a set piece, but they love playing with each other and they love a kind of street football Latin thing. And for me, if I was Marco, I'd be trying to find another couple of Brazilians to inject into the squad. If not Brazilians, some Latin players who play with flair and feel, because I think it would release some absolute talent that gets a little bit bridled from time to time. Not in Muniz. He's kind of always muscling hard and trying to work his bicycle kicks in, God bless him, even when it's not really on. But I think Andreas is a better example of someone who I think really thrives when he feels like he's got similar minds around him. And that was a sublime pass. And just can I also add, did anyone note Muniz's pass when he dropped deep to pick up the ball, and he had a lot of heat on him, and he turned and played one like behind himself, a through ball behind himself. It was fantastic, and that kind of freedom. And I know it's Wigan, I know it's a cup game, but I want to see more of that because I think that's our potential.
I've just had a brainwave on this because I think at the start of the season, it was very much basically what we're talking about. It's the trust between players, but it actually began with I hate using this phrase because I've seen it a lot on Twitter, but it was Arsenal B team. So it was the boys from Arsenal came in. They all knew each other. They all knew how each other played and worked. It was Iwobi, it was Smith Rowe, and it was Nelson. And they were cooking because they understood each other and they had that thing.
Sure.
The Arsenal B team isn't the team anymore. So let's bring back the Samba Whites because, they can do it. They can do it. And we've just got Willian. So, I mean, I genuinely think Marco's gone, the Arsenal boys are down. I got to bring in some more Brazilians.
Love that thought. And it makes sense because, like, when you have that feel-good vibe and when everyone sort of, without use of drilling, if everyone knows where the run is going to be made and how someone's going to play, that makes the game so much quicker, right? And it's going to keep those defenders a little bit off guard. And there's something about those like Latin players, the flair they bring, that's just entertaining to watch. It's easy on the eye. So that's the kind of football I'd like my football club to be playing. So 100% agree with those statements. Just one last point on the game I think is worth mentioning. We kind of were under a fair bit of pressure, I'd say, the last 10 minutes or so. And this seems to always happen whenever we're a goal up, right? So my question to you guys is this something that's inevitable? You know, the team that's down a goal thinks there's nothing to lose and they're always going to push. And if so, how should we be handling it? Because as a Fulham fan, I always get a little bit jittery, right? I always, oh no, here they come. We're a goal up. We've been comfortable. The opposition, you know, and not to big us up too much, but they've been pretty toothless. But it's the last 10 minutes, you know, it's West Ham, it's Everton. They're throwing everything in the kitchen sink at us. How do we handle that? Do we go to 5 at the back? Do we try and counterpunch with Adama and fast breaks? Do we need to utilize the dark arts more? I kind of wanted to get you guys' opinion on this because it's something that I wish we'd be more comfortable at, and I just don't really feel it. And even with Wigan, we had that. Well, I guess we didn't mention it. We should mention it now. But you know, that offside goal that for a second could have been an equalizer, even though 3 players were clearly offside. But off a Benda fumble, and then they tap it in, and I was like, not again, not to extra time. And then you know the headlines say, you know, fairy tale win for Wigan as they overcome Premier League team. But how do you think we handled it? Do you think we've gotten better at handling the pressure, or how should we handle the pressure with 10 minutes to go when we're 1 goal up?
Well, I think there's a whole bunch of different aspects to that. I think firstly, it's a cup tie, it's a knockout, it's Wigan at home. They're doing pretty well against a Premier League team, you know, punching way above their weight, and all credit to them. They were giving it everything and coming at us. And I think it was pretty open, and they were really, you know, chucking the kitchen sink at us. You could argue that we could have kept it a lot tighter in midfield and slowed the game down and managed it better, just kept the ball, because we ought to be able to keep the ball against Wigan, right? And we shouldn't be even allowing them to have those sort of opportunities. Personally, I think I would prefer us, within reason, to actually be more attacking when we're just 1 goal up. And I'm not saying that we're negative, but I would say that, you know, you use someone like Adama in those situations, and you've got to be pretty brave to commit a lot of players forward when you know that Fulham are going to release Adama. We tried to do it a couple of times, and the quality wasn't there in terms of the balls through to Adama. They were nowhere near him, gave him no chance. I think I think the late goals we conceded in kind of frustrating moments against Premier League sides, I think if we analyse those, it's probably a lack of concentration, where we've let teams like, you know, West Ham early in the season took that throw really quickly and just kind of caught us napping, when really we were so close to closing the game out. I mean, even the dark arts are somewhat negative, and you can get caught out doing things like that, because if you're in a negative mindset and you're just trying to waste time and run the clock down, I think you have ceased to play in an attacking way, and you might get caught with your pants down. I think it actually all comes back to, in the context of this game, the first half, we actually should have scored 3. And that created the pressure, because there simply weren't enough goals on the board for Fulham in the last 10 minutes. We should have been 3 ahead.
I don't know really how you instill composure, especially in players, be it 21 or 36. I think some players just have it or they don't, and then you just have to compensate around the rest of the park for the players that don't. I think the only way you can create that level of confidence is if you're really just completely spanking the other team, because that's the only way that you can fully guarantee that we won't actually get into this thing that seems to always happen. I don't know as well if it's a stereotype on us that we have become a team that other teams feel that they can do this to, but it's incredibly common and for us to just kind of lose our heads a little bit and just not necessarily be able to deal with the heat. Yeah, I genuinely don't know how to fix it. It is a systemic problem. We've had it for a while. I think Silva's probably been the best manager to actually deal with it. But I think we are really at the mercy of particularly the bigger teams and sometimes the smaller teams as well. Or just
You mean everyone?
teams that are, yeah, really just teams on a level. I'm just justifying it a little bit more. But really, we just I don't know what it is. We just don't have chill. Like we can't just sit back and just sit confidently and go, we've got this. We're not that team. We're neurotic in nature. I don't know why we just turn into Woody Allen in the last 10 minutes of every single time we play, but that just seems to be the running theme. I genuinely don't know. I wish I could have some deeper insights on it, but
I think there's something you said very early on in that soliloquy, and I think it would have been really fantastic for so many reasons for us to have won 6-0 last night and to really have spanked them, because I think we kind of need that confidence and belief that we can do that to teams. And I know it's Wigan, I know it's a cup tie, and I know it's not the Premier League, but you do that 3 weeks in a row, and I think the mood in the dressing room changes and out on the pitch it changes. There's a sense of belief people have. It comes back to that freedom and actually playing to your capability and capacity, because we've already thrashed the topic, but we've got some very, very special players that are highly skillful, and they play in a much more constrained way because we're trying to win games and actually put them away 2-1 and hang on to leads. Whereas if you play with freedom, which comes from, he will not. I don't want to get into it. I know Mark would love to, but look at Forest. Imagine the confidence that they must be playing with at the moment because of what they're doing to teams.
I actually think I've kind of nutted it out just basically on what you were saying. I think we play with great freedom, and Silva actually allows his players to be whoever they want to be when they actually go on the pitch. I think the double-edged sword to that is it can be beautiful and it can be amazing, and it's high risk, high reward when you allow players that kind of creative control. But I think in order to have confidence, you need to have a system. It's what City do. It's what Arsenal are doing. It's what Liverpool are doing very, very well at the moment as well. If you have a system, you can kind of go, all right, I trust the system. I trust if I do this thing, I'm going to be good. I think that's actually where we're falling apart, because I don't think there is a clear defensive system. I think it's just we have great defenders, and I think there is a difference there.
I mean, that's a great point, Sam. I think we have a system, but the problem with having a system is you need players of the caliber of Arsenal, Man City, and Liverpool to be able to consistently hit that perfect cross or something like that, right? And I think we have that player in Robinson. Okay, it's not a perfect cross every time, but he's at that elite level where our opposition can know, are they going to play a triangle and Robinson's going to knock a cross in? But he's so good that in the 70th minute, their defender is just exhausted and lets it happen because, he doesn't have the same stamina that Robinson does. I don't know about a defense. I hope we have a system. Maybe we don't. But yeah, I mean, I would even argue Forest have a set way of playing, right, which is kind of their system. And we're going to leave that for the next podcast. But to Elton's earlier point, they got thrashed 5-0 by Bournemouth, right? Probably a reality check. And then they go and beat Brighton 7-0. That's got to be the best cure ever. Now you're back on top of the world. You have it in you. And you go back to fully believing that you can and should finish in a Champions League spot. So yeah, kudos to them. They've done it. If you look at the squad value on more of a budget than most. But yeah, we'll leave that. We'll leave that for Thursday.
Yeah.
Just to wrap up,
it makes no sense to me, and it bothers my brain.
Indeed, yeah, I'm right there with you. But yeah, let's wrap up with a final sort of question to you guys. This was provided by Nick, and I think it's a very valid and very good one. It's going to be 16 teams left, right, for the next tie of the FA Cup. Do you guys have a preferred opponent? Do we want to? Is there an away ground we want to go to, or do you want to try and make our chances of success, as high as possible and go for a lower league team? Because there's quite a few out there. I think Blackburn still have to play Wolves, but I believe Cardiff's out there, Millwall's out there, maybe a few others. I was kind of Googling it a little bit before we hopped on the show. For me, I'd love to play a championship side. I wouldn't mind an away day. I like Craven Cottage because I'm lazy and I live in London, so it's easy to get to and I can properly support the team. But if it's within reason, I'd be happy to try and jump on the train and get out there. But do you guys have someone you're sort of eyeballing, so long as it isn't the Etihad away?
Oh, give me championship teams all the way to Wembley. Come on. I'm not very romantic about this. I'm being entirely practical. I'd like the easiest possible run so we can go as far as we possibly can, because probability has it you're going to meet a big team in the last couple of rounds, and so I think it would be horrible to draw Man City or who else? I guess Liverpool, Newcastle. Not that we can't beat Newcastle.
I mean, just based on like the knockout stages so far, I mean, I don't really want to play Ipswich again, just because like I feel like they're a bit of a risky team to play just because of Delap. Because I know we've beaten them, but I mean we've also lost to them as well, and I don't really want to worry about that. Same with Preston as well, man. I mean, like, well, I know it was a very, very different game, but like, I mean, how long was that penalty shootout? Was it something ridiculous? Like, it was like 20 or something stupid. I'm not sure. I'd love to play Exeter. I'd love to play Exeter if Nottingham Forest completely shit the bed. That'd be great. But I mean, it could, or like, have Man U been knocked out? I feel like Man U have been knocked out. I can't forget.
No, they're still in it.
I mean, that could, if anything, I'd probably get more up for. I wouldn't necessarily be confident, but we've played Man U more that it would kind of, I don't know, it would feel like some kind of form of retribution. And I know it's a bit of a raucous thing to say, but I feel that like I would rather go into a game not necessarily confident, but ready to actually put up a decent fight than go into a game confident. Because as we've just discussed, when we go into games confident, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to win. So maybe I'd say playing Man U. I know. And again, just get it wouldn't be like a nice full story kind of moment because Mitro's completely gone now, and maybe Willian can get some redemption in that game as well. That'd be nice.
Love that suggestion. Bit off piece, but I get it. Very topical.
Well, I think the other problem for me is that I'd love a cup run, and I don't think anyone's concerned about relegation here, but we do want to do well, and we want to fulfill our potential in the Premier League, which could be a fringe play in Europe. And I think, given the puddle-like depth of our squad, we can kind of get away with putting out a mixed B-ish team, and continue to progress in the cup at the moment. If we come up against, I don't know, Villa, if we're serious, we simply can't put a shit team out, and that means we're going to have to put out a decent team, and then a few days later, pick up vital points in the Premier League. And I just don't want to see us have to do that until the very end, where it now becomes worth us picking a really, really competitive team in a cup game because we're a couple of games away from Wembley.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, right? You know, heaven forbid we put out Castagna and he gets crocked, or Muniz gets crocked, or some vital player, and now we're kind of, our opposition in the league will know, well, they don't really have a right back, or they don't really have another striker. So if Raul gets tired, that's good. That's one less threat to worry about because they can't sub someone on. So yeah, I think
there's always Vinny. There's always Vinny.
who we haven't mentioned at all. Yeah, he played, apparently, according to the team sheet.
We don't need to talk about Vinicius.
Yeah, that was weird.
I was surprised he was even, because we had Raul on the bench as well. So I was like, what is Marco doing?
Every time I see it happen. Every time I see it happen and I see Vinicius come on, I just go, "You're still here? Like, you're still here?" But fair play. He's getting the wage. He's getting paid more than I am. So like, I'm not going to.
He's getting paid. He's getting paid more than all of us.
Exactly. So who's actually laughing right now?
Yeah, absolutely combined.
Yeah. And on that happy note, I'll be able to cry myself to sleep as I think of that. I think that's a wrap for the show. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. That was a good review of the Wigan game. But Elton, yeah, appreciate your time, appreciate your insights. We had a good chat. Thanks for coming on board.
Thanks, thanks, Mark. You've done a great job hosting, and thanks for taking time out of your holiday schedule in Hong Kong and finding yourself a little quiet room while your family are having a raucous party not a few feet away from you. So, yeah, well done.
Thank you. And Sam, thanks for joining us. The lovely kimono. Absolutely love it. Finishing thoughts.
Thank you very, very much. I was actually going to comment on your jumper. It's a beautiful jumper. A sweater for the American listeners. It's a lovely beige, and beige goes a very, very long way with me. No, thank you very much for having me. Thank you for your excellent contribution tonight, Mark. I thought you've done a fantastic job. Thank you, Father, for making me. It never goes unnoticed. I appreciate that. And yeah, just thanks for having me, guys. I love being here, and what do I have anything else? Nah, we'll just leave it there. I'm really tired now. It's almost 1 a.m. Let me go to bed.
Sounds good. All right, thanks, guys. Come on, you whites.